Thanks for staying with us, everyone. Let's now turn our attention to the Middle East, where Hamas-run health ministry says at least 104 Palestinians were killed in a wave of Israeli strikes on Gaza Tuesday night. This follows an order reportedly given by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the military to carry out, quote, powerful attacks. The Israeli military says it struck dozens of terror targets and terrorists in response to the killing of an Israeli soldier by Hamas in violation of the ceasefire deal brokered by the U.S. Israel's defense minister also says Hamas reached the term of the ceasefire, or breached the terms of the ceasefire by returning a coffin without the body of a deceased hostage. Hamas, on its part, says it did not carry out any attack, and it is committed to the U.S. brokered peace deal.
Important actor in the Middle East. These are not the days where you make decisions about the Middle East without taking into consideration what Israel wants or what they do not want. So Hamas accepting the peace deal and the other parties was predicated and was based on that really. So the situation is deeply concerned territorial dispute. That is what needs to happen. It is addressing those fundamental political and territorial disputes that can bring lasting peace. Out of this conflict are issues of control, security, and human consequences of decisions made by leaders. These issues must be acknowledged if there's going to be any meaningful achievement with the peace. Otherwise, it will remain fragile peace that will keep on, failing from time to time.
And what we've seen is a blame game by both sides. But I'm wondering, with these occasional flare-ups in violence and then the slow return of hostages' bodies by Hamas, how quick do you think mediator countries can get to implementing the next stage of the ceasefire, which, by the way, also addresses even knottier issues?
Well, I think if the stakeholders intervene immediately, we will be able to contain the situation. You heard Trump; he believes Israel has a right to defend itself, and but while Israel is defending itself, it has an impact on civilians in Gaza, and these are severe and immediate. Families are losing their homes, essential infrastructure being destroyed, and health facilities are under strain. Look how many people that died just yesterday. So there has to be an immediate response. On the side of Hamas also, it's important that they keep to the terms of the agreement. The United States faces a complex balancing act here, for example, because on one hand, it supports Israel's right to defend itself, and that is not something Trump hides, all right, against security threats. But on the other hand, the United States also is also under pressure to advocate for the protection of civilians and the minimization of human suffering. This dual responsibility reflects broader strategic considerations, domestic political factors, and the need to maintain credibility on the international stage. So how they respond and how quickly they respond in the coming days will influence both the immediate trajectory of the conflict and the longer-term diplomatic environment in the Middle East.
And I wanted to just pull up, because you mentioned President Trump's response to this, and I wanted to pull that up. He said, and I'm quoting him, nothing is going to jeopardize the ceasefire. And then he repeated threats, that Hamas would be terminated. And I'm wondering how because again, we saw what happened between Cambodia and Thailand. That almost like a fear or intimidation diplomacy, that strategy for ending wars and bringing about ceasefires. I'm wondering how sustainable that is, especially for Hamas.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, you cannot have a sustainable peace that is achieved through dominance. The real issues that created the violence, that created all of the fighting and the wars and the killings need to be addressed, all right? And what I thought when the peace deal was signed was that it gives the world a chance to actually look at those fundamental issues as quick as possible. So any peace you achieve through dominance will not last. Doesn't matter whether it lasted for 1 month or for 1 year or for 3 years. The fact is that there's going to be trouble at some point. So I do not think that this dominance approach to peace will work. I think that there has to be a feeling of justice on both sides. Justice must be based on the truth. It is only when these are addressed that people can feel that there is justice that you can find a peace that will last. Again, we've always talked about the two-state solution. The trouble is it's also very complex because it's not just partitioning. There are fundamental issues. Who controls what? Who determines what happens? See, so I think that there needs to be effort to implement that two-state, a solution. However, I do think that the two-state solution should be reviewed. There are issues there. There are clauses there that both sides are finding very difficult to accept. In negotiation, you have to be willing to lose something. Okay. But that's something that needs to happen. There needs to be a review of that two-state solution in a way that both sides feel a sense of justice. It is only then that we can expect to see a peace that will last. Any peace achieved through dominance, achieved through intimidation, will not last. It's just a matter of time before it collapses.
Thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to have you on, Chairman of the 16th Council, Dr. Brian Reuben. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Precious.